Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to give you just a few more minutes, or just a moment, actually. It's about 11 o'clock, just to let everyone get ready and join us. I see everyone trickling in. Hello. Just another minute or so. All right. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome. This is our webinar, More Than a Daycare, Becoming an Early Childhood Education Center. So before we get started, we just want to welcome you. Take a moment to locate the question window at the bottom of the Zoom webinar. The controls are right there. Feel free to say hello or ask your first question using the Q&A feature. Just wanted to draw your attention to the QR code that is also currently on the screen. If you scan the QR code or visit the webinar link there, procare.solutions/webinar-survey, you are entered in for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So, do that at your leisure, but we're going to go ahead and get started here. Okay. And just feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar, and we'll have some time at the end to go through a Q&A. Okay, so again, thank you so much. Just a few housekeeping things. So things to note, don't worry, we can't see or hear you as we have the video and the sound off during this presentation. Do we have a Q&A? Yes, we do. We'll have time at the end for questions, so please enter them in the Q&A tab throughout the webinar as questions arise. If you are having technical difficulties, if you're having problems with your audio, we just recommend exiting out of all other software currently on your device. Sometimes that helps to get things back on and running. So, okay. Before we begin, I just wanted to quickly talk a little bit about Procare. So we actually are celebrating our 30th year in business this year, which is very exciting. If you haven't heard of Procare, we are the #1 name in childcare management software. We serve over 37,000 childcare centers, ranging from single unit operations to multinational enterprises. We're the most widely used childcare management solution for childcare centers, before and after school programs, and all youth organizations. What does Procare do? So with Procare, you manage everything. We're an all-in-one cloud-based integrated platform, which means there's no need for paper or any other additional software on your end. We're an all-in-one solution. Procare, we help centers organize and simplify administrative tasks, manage classrooms, family engagement and communications between parents and teachers, finances, billing and payments, child and staff management, and so much more. Okay, so just a little intro for today's speakers. Let me introduce. First, we have AJ Crabill. AJ, so improving students' outcomes is his relentless focus, right? He coaches school systems nationwide while also currently serving as the conservator at the DeSoto Independent School District, which is in Texas. During his guidance, DeSoto has made double-digit literacy gains and improved from F ratings in academics, finance, and governance to the district earning an overall B rating in every category. That's a huge stride. He serves as the deputy commissioner at the Texas Education Agency and has spearheaded reforms as board chair for the Kansas City Public Schools. He is the recipient of the Education Commission of the state's James Bryant Conant Award, which recognizes extraordinary individual contributions to education. So he also has 2 books. So take a look at those and read those books at your leisure. So welcome, AJ. And then we also have Laura Delgado. I'm just going to give a little intro and then she can give us a little bit more info. So Laura is the Vice President of Curriculum and Professional Development for Learning Beyond Paper. And then I'm going to hand it off to Laura to expand a little bit about LBP.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brittany. I appreciate that. So Learning Beyond Paper is the only early learning curriculum designed to support teachers in real time. We offer 52 weeks of lesson plans for infants to pre-kindergarten with over 4,000 daily and weekly activities. We are research-based, classroom tested, and teacher approved. Lesson plans and daily activities are presented in a developmental progression. We'll get more into what that means later. Learning areas include STEAM, language and literacy, physical development, music and movement, cognitive, and interactive reading. And training is built in with tips and tools teachers can use in real time. Professional development course offerings for teachers. We offer in-service and CEU opportunities that are given through Bertelsmann Education.
Okay, so here we go. We're going to get started. Becoming an Early Childhood Education Center, ECE. Laura, take it away.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to talk about, the different meanings behind that. Becoming more than a daycare center, becoming an early childhood education center. 2 of the top 2023 challenges at early childhood education centers really has to do with staffing and curriculum. So ProCare Solutions, childcare management software industry trends report found that 2/3 of providers reported a staffing shortage and 20% cited issues with creating curriculum. So 67% of centers state that their biggest challenge is staffing shortages. So you all know that we in this industry have had staffing shortages always. I had preschools. My mother had preschools when I was growing up. I remember being in high school and her coming home saying, "Oh my gosh, I just need to find good teachers that'll stay." And this was way before COVID. COVID just kind of, exacerbated everything and made everything worse. So now we're finding that directors and assistant directors are having to go into the classrooms to cover, classrooms to be in ratio and to be able to, get through the day. Teachers are job hopping. They don't feel supported in different programs. And a lot has to do with creating great curriculum and having and offering curriculum in the centers. Okay. So I love this this graphic here because it really shows a lot of what the challenges are that our centers are experiencing. Again, those staffing shortages are real. Covering classrooms, lack of continuity, stress levels, creating curriculum is time consuming. We have untrained teachers, we have behavior challenges, expenses, and no planning time. And all of this is connected. So when we have staffing shortages and we have to shift children from one classroom to another to combine classrooms, or when we have to shift teachers, there's that lack of continuity, which impacts teachers being able to create those profound relationships with children, understanding and getting to know children, how they learn, how they behave, how they act, what they like, what they don't like, what their needs are developmentally, which causes those behavior challenges and all the challenges that are happening in the classroom. With the staffing crisis happening, we are hiring untrained teachers that either are just entering the workforce or maybe switching careers. And so we have to be able to provide support, coaching, mentoring, curriculum, skill development, building capacity in these untrained teachers in order for them to be able to really do the best job that they can with our children. This also increases stress levels. So we're seeing a lot of mental health challenges, not only with children, but also with teachers trying to manage that stress.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions here that will be for both AJ and for Laura. So first things first, early childhood education is something you're both obviously passionate about. I mean, you have strong opinions about those who think early childhood education only starts when a child is 3 or 4 years old. Can both of you or either of you, can you talk more about when you believe early childhood education should start? AJ?
The partnerships I've tried to create have been led by school systems. And so working with traditionally K-12 institutions that are increasingly pre-K-12 and even pre-K-20 as school systems increasingly are doing more pre-K work and doing more early college work. As we were digging into it in my last school system and really trying to understand how best to meet the need of our students to make sure that they were literate and numerate on grade level by the time they were exiting 3rd grade, it became apparent that so many of our students were behind at that point that we really needed to figure out what are ways to support them even earlier. At that time, we had pre-K in mind. Through a lot of study and research, what we came to find is that a more successful approach was likely going to involve trying to figure out how to be in partnership with parents, even when children were not yet born. And so what we wound up looking at was what's a way that we could have a partnership, engage with a nurse-family partnership that happens while the child is still in utero and up until the child is 6 months old. This is really around how do we make sure that mom and the family have the resources they need and are engaging in the healthy habits that they need to support gestation, but then also gets into what are the early things that families can be doing to really set the stage for their children's healthy and successful development. And then that would transition from 6 months to 3 years into parents as teachers, which really, again, the focus is on skill building, knowledge building for parents, and what are the things that they could be doing in that critical development window to really support their children and developing with the social emotional skills necessary to be ready for preschool, but also any of the pre-cognitive skills, pre-academic skills you need, things like just reading to children, and so they get a sense of, okay, which way does the book go, and things of that nature that are really powerful things to do from 6 months old to 3 years old. Then transitioning into pre-K, where we're really continuing to deepen what are those skill sets that students will need to be able to function and be able to interact with each other in a healthy way. There's a lot of work around socializing. There's a lot of work around play, around collaboration, and things of this nature, in addition to some of the early academic things of letter sounds and colors and names of numbers and things of that nature. All of that leading up to kindergarten. And so that full spectrum of supports, first overwhelmingly for the family and then slowly for the child themselves, are all things that we came to think of as being critical aspects of early childhood education.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, next question. So how effective or ineffective can curriculum impact children? Laura, I'll ask you.
Okay. Yeah, so ineffective curriculum can impact children in a very negative way, not only impact children, but impact teachers and the whole program as well. Effective curriculum really needs to look at the whole child. We are trying to move away from teaching in silos, from helping teachers understand that even though you have a classroom schedule, that children don't learn in silos, that, for example, from 10 to 10:30, we're reading and we're only reading, we're not talking about math, or from 10:30 to 10:45, we're doing a math activity, so we're not learning vocabulary, literacy, social, emotional. Effective curriculum really is that backbone, the glue that keeps your program together, the backbone of your classroom, of your, helping your children develop in your program. It should be aligned with your mission and your vision. And if we if we look at the whole child and we have a curriculum that supports the whole child as an individual, that curriculum can make a huge impact in that child's learning and development. One of the things that we're super excited about with Learning Beyond paper is that we really stand out in the fact that we have integrated social emotional development and learning in every single activity, in all 4,000 activities for all age groups every day. I used to work for the state of Florida's Office of Early Learning, and I used to vet curriculum as part of the curriculum review team. And oftentimes I would see, and also as a provider, I've worked with a lot of different publishers out there, and I would see, okay, this is the math activity, this is the language activity, and now we're going to do a social emotional development activity, when all of that has to really be integrated together, especially that social emotional development, and especially today, post-COVID, a lot of these children were home with their children, with their families for 8 to 18 months. Now they're entering school again, or for the first time. We're seeing a lot of behavior challenges, a lot of social emotional delays. We're seeing some developmental delays as well. And so we really, really wanted to be very intentional with, if we're making Play-Doh today, we're also talking about developing those independent skills, developing those cooperation skills, those friendship skills, those approaches to learning skills, to really, really support the whole child in that development. So I think that is where, that effective versus ineffective curriculum can impact children.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. One more question. So for both of you, AJ and for Laura, what tips could you provide a child care center owner or director to help them staff and retain teachers? Laura, go ahead.
So I'll start. So the biggest tip is, and again, I used to be a director, I used to be an owner, and I wish I would have known some of the things that I know now, some of the advice that I give directors and owners now, but really it's supporting your staff. It's checking in with them. It's remembering that they're human and that they have needs. That whole philosophy of leave your problems at the door doesn't really work, because we're human. We bring those problems with us. And so checking in with your staff, remembering that human side of it. We expect our teachers to nurture our children in the classroom, but who's nurturing our teachers, but also who's nurturing our directors and our owners. We have to remember as directors and owners to fill your own bucket too, because you can't fill other people's buckets from an empty one. And so really, really, aside from giving them the tools that they need, because obviously they need the tools to make their job successful, easier, manageable, knowing your staff, meeting them where they are. So if you hire someone that's never been in childcare, who's never gone through a curriculum, don't hand them something that they're not even going to be able to understand, right? That's going to be very stressful. It's going to be demoralizing. So understanding where your staff, where they are, meeting them there and helping them build capacity through training, professional development, mentoring, coaching, but also that human side, the morale. I always, we do a lot of training at Learning Beyond, and some people are surprised because we do training on staff retention, morale, and culture. So what is your center's culture? Is it a culture of friendship? Are you a servant leader? Are you there to help your staff? So when you add all of those things together, giving them the tools that they need to make their day-to-day job and work with the children easier and successful, along with that human side of it, the morale, the culture, checking in with your staff, that really is going to retain teachers, because it'll be harder for a teacher to leave a center where everyone knows their child's name. Everyone knows that they just graduated with their master's degree and they celebrated them. They had a baby shower for them. They checked in and said, how's your mother feeling? I heard she was in the hospital. That makes it harder to leave, to go to a new center, that you don't know if you're going to have that same camaraderie and friendship and connection to your team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely don't have the experience to speak to retention of teachers in a early childhood education center context. Most of my experiences in the K-12 context, but my answer actually is going to be the exact same things that Laura said, that essentially that work conditions matter, that people come into the education field because we want to make a difference for children. And when people are empowered to do that, that's really enticing. And when people feel like there are significant barriers to being able to live out that passion, live out that intention, then folks tend to find someplace else to be. It's not without cause that you hear the old adage that people don't quit their jobs, people quit their bosses.
Yep.
100%. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Okay. All right. So the importance of strong curriculum at early childhood education centers. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, so as we've said, already, curriculum touches and impacts every aspect of a program. It must be in line with the program's philosophy, mission, and vision. One of the things that I always challenge owners and directors to think about is, did you purchase this curriculum because it's right for your school, your program, your philosophy, your mission, the children that you are serving today, or did you just purchase it because that's just what everyone is using or what you've always used? Everything we do with children has to be intentional, down to the scissors that we buy, right? We don't give the same scissors to a 2-year-old that we do to a 4-year-old. So why just cookie cutter curriculum, and use something that you've been using for decades when the world is changing, children are changing, their needs are changing. So curriculum should support the development of teachers and children. It's interesting because, we have teachers and children grouped together here. I always like to say that with learning beyond paper, we're scaffolding teachers as they are scaffolding children, because we are hiring so many teachers right now that are new to early childhood education. We have to be able to support them. And with the staffing crisis, directors and curriculum coordinators, assistant directors are having to cover classrooms. So they're not able to go into the classroom as much as they were in the past. And if you are on this webinar and you are able to go into the classroom and coach and mentor, really, really pat yourself on the back and count your lucky stars, because that is not the norm right now, unfortunately. So you have to have a curriculum that will support the development of your teachers and children. Intentionality should be at the center of a curriculum's approach. So again, we try to be intentional with everything that we do, down to our professional development and training and the way that we do it. And one of the things I'd like to share, going along with intentionality, is everyone at Learning Beyond Paper, from our president and CEO down to our education representatives, all have been in front of a classroom. We have all been a teacher in front of those 10 2-year-olds by ourselves on our second day trying to figure it out. And so when we set out to build this curriculum, we wanted to meet the needs of that teacher on their first or second day by themselves in the classroom. We wanted to be able to support that teacher, along with supporting tenured teachers who've been doing this for 20, 30 years. How do we support them as well? So everything that we do at Learning Beyond really is intentional at the core.
Wonderful. As you will see, the American Academy of Pediatrics states that high quality early education and child care for young children improves physical and cognitive outcomes for the children and can result in enhanced school readiness. So, just reiterating, high quality early education builds a lifelong foundation for learning and success. Okay, we have a few more questions here. So how does a provider differentiate themselves from, say, a child care center or a daycare? Laura, I'll ask you first.
Okay. So that's okay. I didn't know who was going to go first. So I just like to say that I know that, there are some people out there that might have the word daycare in the title of their program. And so that's not to say that you're not quality or anything like that by any means. When we're using the term daycare here, we're really thinking and referring to kind of the old school daycares. I remember in high school working at a daycare after school, and the director would just tell me, give the kids cereal and put Barney on the TV until their parents pick them up. And it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That is very daycare, old school babysitting, really, really different philosophy than what research has shown that early childhood should be. And so the way that a provider can differentiate themselves from, you know, an early child care education setting, childcare center or daycare, is really about the tools and resources, that are provided to the teachers, to the, you know, the staff, to the children, to the families. It really, you know, we talk about whole child, but also whole center, right? So if you kind of translate that into the center, what does that look like? So whole center, you know, what kind of benefits are you offering your staff? And I'm not talking about health and medical. I'm talking back again to that human side of it, that that culture, that morale. Are you helping your staff grow? Do you know what their goals are? Do you know if they want to continue their education, and in what, and you know, in what capacity? Do you have an open door policy for parents? Are parents and families invited to be part of your program? Do you allow them to volunteer, come in, read books, help out during lunch? You know, I know in some places that's not allowed, but if it is, what kind of community ties do you have? You know, do you do fundraising for maybe a nursing home, or, you know, so it's really building a robust program, and showing children, because remember, everything that we do, we're modeling for children. So if if we're constantly trying to teach and show children how to be friends to each other, but then the teachers are not getting along, then there's a mixed message there, right? And children are always watching us. So it really is about that culture. You know, are you providing a curriculum that supports the children that you are serving, that supports the teachers that you have? Do you have the materials and supplies and the supports that you need to be able to carry out that program? So really, it's not having a perfect preschool with the most state of the art, you know, IT or any of that. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's about that intention. It's about the intentionality, the heart behind it, and the tools that you're offering your staff to be able to support children's learning and development.
Wonderful. AJ, do you have anything to add, or we can move on to the next question?
Well, certainly. And I think the two start to blend together, because she'd already picked up a large part of this. So I'll kind of bridge them. Is for me, what's really essential is that with school systems I've worked with aren't really looking to partner with daycares. The intention around both of them have an obligation, just like K-12 institutions do, to provide a safe, secure environment for children. But the work of a preschool or early childhood education center goes significantly beyond just having a safe an appropriate environment for a child, and really, what are we doing to prepare that child for their next level of learning, whatever that might be, and whatever is developmentally appropriate for them. And so this distinction is why I say that the organizations, the K-12 institution I've worked with, would not be looking to partner with daycares, because their mission is just fundamentally not sufficiently compatible, but would be looking to partner with early childhood education centers. One distinction that speaks to is that I encourage K-12 institutions to invite your ECE partners to your professional development, and to do joint professional development around curriculum practices with your ECE partners in the community, with your preschool partners in the community. If you are not operating from a defined curriculum, and preferably a curriculum that is in some way aligned with the curriculum of your local school system, then it's hard to make the argument that you have graduated into this echelon of service, where you're not merely providing a safe, secure environment, but you're actually also providing a educationally nurturing environment. Of environment that is actively helping prepare, from an educational perspective, an academic perspective, a social perspective, children for that next level of learning. And so that's, to me, the key differentiator. Is when I think of daycare, it does lead the mind back to, this idea of, a bunch of kids in a playpen. While that is not the truth of all daycares, that is not sufficient. Even a more appropriate version of that, a more well built out version of that, is still not the same thing as, are we actively creating a place for children to be challenged and to grow in such a way that they are prepared for the next level of learning. And that's partially why having a developmentally and age appropriate curriculum is so essential, is because this isn't going to happen by accident. It's going to happen by intention, by planning, and by design. Just because I love children enough won't cause them to be ready for their next level of learning. Just because I care about children enough won't cause them to be ready for the next level of learning. There has to be an intentional curriculum. It does have to be developmentally appropriate, which is going to vary based on your child. They don't all reach the same developmental milestones at the same time. It does have to be age appropriate. And this is a conversation that often you wind up having with families of what is material that makes sense for my child, since we do want to rely on parents as having a lot of expertise in their own child. But if you aren't having those type of conversations and there's not a curricular focus, then I would argue you're definitely at the level of a daycare, which again provides a meaningful service, but is decidedly not the same thing as an early childhood education center, and is not providing children the same level of supports that they might need in order to be ready for their next level of learning. Part of the reason I differentiate between these is because I've traditionally worked in K-12 environments where students needed a lot of additional support, where students would regularly come in and they were not on track to be literate and numerate by the end of third grade, which is a really important threshold. You don't magically get children ready to be literate in third grade, starting in third grade or in second grade or in first grade or even in kindergarten. That there are a set of prerequisite knowledge and skills and dispositions that students really need to have, and that's developed earlier. For a lot of my students, they simply were not showing up prepared to kindergarten for that. And so that's why our focus was we needed to partner with institutions that were going to help bolster that level of preparation. We wanted to partner closely with them so that there was a common set of curricular standards that they could rely on. We'd make that freely available to them. If you aren't partnered with your local school district, I'd ask that question. Can we have access? Can we be a partner with you all and have access to your resources that are designed for our age group? And can we engage in the professional development that you're doing for your staff who serve this age group? It's not the same thing as the curriculum and the professional development for elementary school. That is not the same thing. I don't think that's going to be appropriate or useful for you. It sounds like just because, oh, elementary school, kindergarten, it's just right there, so that'd be the same. This is foolishness. What you really want to do is, if the school system has curriculum in place and professional development in place because they are operating their own in-house early childhood program, or because they do that as part of their partnership with community-based early childhood programs, that's what you'd want to get involved in. And so if that's available, I'd encourage people. And if you are currently operating a daycare and you want to move in the direction of actually being an early childhood education center, my first coaching to you is do your own homework first. Like this is, there are certificates, there are programs, whether associates, bachelor, graduate level, that will really prepare you. It is not, I would not recommend that you rely on a elementary teaching certificate as being commensurate with having you prepared to lead an early childhood education center. They are just significantly different. It's for the same reason that you wouldn't call on a third grade teacher to teach a 12th grade physics class. They're just different developmentally and content-wise. But if that is possible, if you really want to help prepare students for that next level of learning, and you're willing to do the work to lean into working with your parents and working with your local school systems and providers to make sure that you have a developmentally and age-appropriate curriculum for those young people. And as you implement that, then I think you have the right to refer to yourself as an early childhood education provider. And if any of those conditions are not true, you're a daycare. And that's not to say that it's a bad place for children, but it's not the same place for children.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So that covers our second question, so I'll move right along.
Yeah.
Nice little segue there.
Laura, you're the expert. So if I said something incorrectly.
No, you were actually, I was smiling when you were speaking because you were just really speaking to my heart, because so many, I've worked with a lot of school districts and principals that would have a preschool program and put a third or fourth grade teacher in the pre-K class. And it hurt my heart because it's not, there's no place for that. There's no purpose. It's very detrimental to the teacher, to the children. You can't just water down first and kindergarten and first grade to go to pre-K. It's a completely different world. So I really, really appreciated you saying that, that it has to be intentional. It has to be focused toward the early learning. Research. I remember being in preschool, and what my daughter was doing in preschool, she's now 15, I was doing in third grade. So how things have advanced and research and everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, what? I mean, I turned out okay, but still, I can't believe, how much we've grown, over the last, few decades. And, research now shows us that we are born with natural mathematical abilities, but we have to do something with that, right? We have to have people around us who know how to cultivate that learning and help us grow and develop, right? And if there's no one to do that, then we're stagnant, we're stuck. So that's why it's really important, like AJ was saying, and I love the way that you framed it, that, not only do you have to have that developmentally age appropriate curriculum, but also you have to have goals in mind. And that's what separates daycare versus early learning and early childhood education centers, is that it's all about the goal, right? So the goal for your children, the goal for your staff, the goals that your own staff has for themselves, continuing that education. We have to understand, as preschool educators and as childcare providers, we are educators, right? We're not necessarily teachers at this level. We're facilitators in children's learning. And we have to continue our education. Education is not a one-time certificate and that's it, we're done. You have to continue it. So I love when I see providers going above and beyond the minimum requirement of the state. Some states are 5 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, but those who are striving for more, they want to learn more about literacy, more about how children learn, more about social emotional development. That really sets apart, those two types of programs. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Wonderful. Okay, so what is the difference between a digital curriculum and a paper-based curriculum? Laura, I'm looking to you.
Yeah, so I've worked with both. And so, right now we are in the digital age. People do not read anymore. They don't want to read. They don't want to go through books and binders. I remember, again, I use my daughter for a lot of examples. A year ago, she had to do a research paper in high school. And I said, oh, do you want to go to the library? And she looked at me like, for what? Why am I going to the library when everything I need is right on my phone, right? And so, we work with a lot of preschools around the world, actually, but for the first time, we have 5 generations in the workforce, but the generation that is coming in droves is really the millennial Gen Z generation that's coming into the workforce, especially with early childhood education and childcare. And, these are people who want instant gratification. They want it right at their fingertips. They're not going to go through books and binders and kits and things like that. When I was a curriculum reviewer with the state of Florida, publishers would we worked from home, and so publishers would send us the kits to review. And I remember receiving these kits, and it was boxes and boxes and boxes of one curriculum. And being in early childhood for over 25 years, having my master's degree, running a center, being a teacher, with all the experience that I had no idea where to start. So imagine if I am 20 years old, it's my 3rd day, and they say to me, okay, do a lesson plan based on these books. I have no idea where to start, right? And so it's not that those are bad, they're just not for everybody, and times are changing. And so we really need to, just like education, it's ever evolving. This supports education, learning, and development. And so that's ever evolving as well. And so the digital curriculum allows us to make changes in real time as research, comes out with new studies, as, a new book comes out on social emotional development or whatever. We have the ability to make those types of changes to make it user-friendly, where at the touch of a fingertip, they're there in the lesson plan, in the daily activity, in, in a reflection piece, communicating with the parent, so we're no longer waiting for that, little handwritten note coming home to see if my child's diaper was changed or if they ate their food. We know right then at lunch, while I'm having my lunch as a mom, I'm getting a message from my teacher on my phone that they also ate their food, right? And so I think that digital curriculum really is in line with where we are today, as a technological world. And so it keeps up with everyone. Older generations are also jumping on that. I know with my mom with Facebook and, everything, they love that,
Yeah,
I had mentioned that my mom had preschools when I was growing up, and she always makes comments like, wow, it would have been so much easier if I had all these tools, if I had all these, gadgets and ways for my teachers to be able to do their job a little bit easier. So, yeah, it's a huge difference. I think there's a bit of a gap with paper-based curriculum. As soon as it's printed, it starts becoming outdated. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Okay, moving right along here. All right.
Yeah, so we, at Learning Beyond and, partnered with ProCare, we believe that curriculum must support teachers and promote their success now and for the future. And this is what we've been talking about, throughout this whole conversation. Curriculum should create stronger connections with families. And, one thing that AJ mentioned in one of the first questions was that, working with families from in utero to 6 months to then, pre-K, but, recognizing that parents and families are the children's first educators. And it's really important to have that connection, to build that homeschool bond, all for the sake of the child's growth and development. Providing high quality 21st century early learning experiences for all children. We want all children to have access to high quality early learning programming. And so digital curriculum is the answer for early childhood education centers. You save time with built-in content and job training in real time. So again, the way that we've developed this, we've embedded open-ended questions to remind teachers, it's not just about, hey, I made this pretty picture. It's now ask, well, tell me how you decided to make it. Well, what happened when you mixed the two colors? And how did this make you feel? And what does it taste like? And trying to really build that language. Easy to use and implement a consistent approach across your center. So especially now where a lot of leadership at the center, directors and curriculum coordinators, assistant directors are not able to go into classrooms, you really don't know if the quality is consistent in every classroom. So having a curriculum that has that intentionality behind it, that if the teachers are following that curriculum, the children are getting those, that high quality programming. Cover classes with ease without compromising the quality of instruction, instantly change between age groups. So again, if a teacher does have to go from infants in the morning to preschool in the afternoon, they can easily toggle back and forth in our system. New content available automatically, no need to purchase new expensive curriculum kits. So as I said, we can update content automatically as things change. Time savings by teachers, weekly and cost savings for child care center owners. So we have done numerous studies on this, and on average, teachers are saving 3 to 5 hours a week in lesson planning and things like that. And so if you, think about it, if you multiply that or translate it into dollars, how much time is being saved there, how much money, and of that money, what can go back into supporting children's learning and development through buying supplies and materials and paying for professional development and things like that. It demonstrates providers' commitment to teachers, professional development, and personal growth. So that loyalty, that goes back to what we talked about before, kind of that human side, building capacity in your teachers, investing in your teachers, helping them pay for the professional development and their personal growth. What are their goals, and being able to show that commitment.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Okay, so before we go into our Q&A, I just wanted to give a little info. So ProCare is currently doing a limited time promotion. So you'll get ProCare Early Learning and our ProCare platform free for 3 months. The only stipulation is you have to request a demo by May 31st. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code there. Or visit the link info.procaresoftware.com/spring special 23. Again, you'll get ProCare early learning, so learning beyond paper, which is integrated with our ProCare platform, free for 3 months. So that's just our current promo. And then, okay, so now we will go into our questions. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to submit them under the Q&A tab. But we do have a few. So first things first. So I'm going to go to AJ. What do you think about transitional kindergarten? This question is specifically asking about what's happening in California, but I know there are transitional kindergartens throughout the US. So what do you think about the transitional kindergarten?
So I don't actually know about the transitional kindergarten having in California. So if your person is in California, I can't answer anything specific to that. But this idea of using screening to try to think about what are the appropriate services for students who are not yet 5. That's been a conversation that's been held in a number of states. That's not unique. To me, these things always come down to what is appropriate in a conversation with the parent and the learning institution, whether that be the K-12 or be the early childhood center, as to what is developmentally the most appropriate thing for that child. And so again, I know that's vague because it's not specific to California, but the underlying concept that I hope that they're talking about is, how do we determine where this child is, what their needs are, and develop a solution that's responsive to them. The one thing I would be worried about is if we treated this as a blanket thing, that would automatically raise concerns for me.
Absolutely.
We actually work with a couple of programs in California, and one of our content writers actually lives in California, and she has shared some of her information about transitional kindergarten, because I didn't know what that was either. And basically it's just kind of a year between pre-K and kindergarten. So like AJ was saying, just trying to assess what the child still needs to be able to be successful in kindergarten, instead of just putting them straight into kindergarten. So some people are for it, some people are not. But it's just that kind of that year of extra support. So they call it TK, and to get that child ready. Oftentimes it's children who haven't been to preschool. And so I don't know if they get assessed or tested and then get put into a transitional kindergarten, or if it's the parent's choice. I don't know that part. But from what I hear, often it has to do with children that did not go to an early learning childcare provider.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, another question, specifically in regards to learning beyond paper. So how do we align our curriculum with K through 12 curriculums?
So learning beyond paper is aligned with all 50 states early learning and developmental standards, which are then aligned to the K-12. So we do prepare children for kindergarten, that's school readiness. So we do align with all 50 states early learning standards.
Perfect.
And I would jump in on that. Most school systems either have in-house some type of support for curriculum and instruction professionals who are constantly going over the K-12 curriculum to determine appropriateness and alignment and things of that nature. They'll look at the assessment program, all those type of topics. So most school systems either have people in-house who are serving in this curriculum instruction capacity, and often they have some title like Director of Curriculum Instruction, or they have an external partner that they work with, whether it's a regional center that works with a lot of the school systems in the area, or a local university, or a nonprofit partner, or something of that sort. And so if you are operating a center and you're wanting to collaborate with your local K-12, that's the first place I would look. Is I would try to reach out to whoever is responsible for their curriculum instruction department and try to ascertain, do they have already in place some type of supports or materials to help align the work happening at early childhood education centers with the work that's taking place in kindergarten. That's where I would begin the conversation. And often you will find that there are already some type of resources or some type of conversation that's being held. But if not, hopefully what you'll run into is people who have a heart for collaboration because they understand the difference it'll make for their students.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we've got one more question, and both feel free to answer. So why is it important to have activities in a developmental progression?
So it's important to have these activities laid out in a developmental progression following a scope and sequence because skills build upon each other. So there are some programs out there that just give you just a collection of activities that get you through the year. But like I said before, we're facilitators in children's learning. We're scaffolding their learning. And for example, I remember when I was a teacher and parents would come to me and be like, oh, she knows how to count, or she knows her ABC. She doesn't need to be in the 2s. She needs to be in the 3s room. And then when I would say, okay, well, show me the A, show me the B, show me the W out of order. And the child's like, so they know the song, or they can chant 1 through 10, but they really don't have that meaningful counting. So if we take counting, for example, counting doesn't begin with learning 1 through 10. Counting begins with sorting. Right. And so if we skip that, if it's just a random collection of activities and you're teaching counting 1 to 10, and then 2 months later, sorting bears, you're out of order, you're out of sync. That child's going to have a lot of cracks in their foundation. And so it's really important that, again, that differentiator between kind of a daycare setting versus an ECE setting is understanding how children learn, understanding how skills develop, how language develops, how math develops. AJ talked a lot about those math skills and literacy skills needing to be where they need to be by 3rd grade, because if the child does not have that by 3rd grade, they never catch up. I mean, they might. That's not saying that they're not going to read, but they're going to be delayed. I've seen it. It's scary to see that impact. That's why 3rd grade is such a crucial year to assess where the children are, because that really predicts the future. There's studies that show that if you're not on grade level reading in 3rd grade, you have such a high probability for crime and other things, because you don't have those skills to get you through whatever education path you need. And so it's really important that at the early learning level, that we understand that there is a scope and sequence, there is a developmental progression to how children learn. And so we have to introduce activities in a certain way.
AJ, I saw you shaking your head. Do you have anything to add?
As usual, Laura said it, so I'm just going to have Laura be the designated AJ whisperer because she's got it.
I see a collaboration in your future. Wonderful. Well, thank you.
Also, shout out to folks in Odessa. I've enjoyed my times out in Ector County.
Oh, some of our attendees in Odessa. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much for answering those questions. So one more thing. So we have a surprise giveaway today. So for all of you that had stayed on the webinar through its entirety, we have a winner that we will be sending a $100 gift card to. So we've selected that winner to be Eliza Brown, I believe. Eliza Brown, yes. So you will be receiving a $100 gift card. We thank you so much for staying on for this webinar. You'll be receiving that via email, so be on the lookout for that. Again, we had the QR code for a chance to win a $100 gift card as well, if you fill out a survey, which we hope you do. If you have any other questions, feel free to submit them. Otherwise, at this time, we just wanted to say thank you for joining us. And if you have any specific questions about, learning beyond paper, our collaboration with them, or even for AJ, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to connect. Otherwise, we just want to say thank you so much. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Happy Wednesday. And don't forget about us here at ProCare Solutions. So have a great day. Thank you so much.